So a little while ago, we talked about SNK coming back to the market after this big plug-and-play craze from Nintendo, doing things like the NES Classic and then the Super Nintendo Classic. Now we have Sony and Sega doing it, but we of course had the Neo Geo Mini. And it was okay. It was a neat idea. It was a little arcade unit that you'd set up and you'd play, but they got a little crazy with it. You plug controllers in and the screen wasn't great, and the joystick, it was smooth, and that did not work well with a lot of Neo Geo fans who like the clicky style of the arcade stick, well, from the arcade. That makes sense, right? So here they come now, throwing out the screen completely and going with a more traditional fight stick. This is the Neo Geo Arcade Stick Pro that they are now selling. It went on sale earlier this month, and they sent one out to me to take a look. And while I'm not the biggest fighting game person, I was very curious to see a fight stick that had a plug-and-play system built into it for use on your TV. Now, when the Neo Geo Mini released months and months ago, one of the biggest issues a lot of people had with it was its pricing, which was north of $100, about $110 if I remember correctly. Well, the Arcade Stick Pro comes in higher than that even. This is $130, and I do question the price being that high. However, it does come with 20 built-in games, and I have heard from some people that this is designed to be higher quality. This, unfortunately, doesn't feel super high quality with its plastics or its just overall feel to it. So I'm curious how this one is. So right away, I like the way the box looks. It has this nice yellow to it, and on the side it says "Carry on the Legacy," and then kind of an outline of the fight stick itself. On the top, it has a little handle that you can grab when you're, carrying it out the store, and then a colored version of the Neo Geo Arcade Stick graphic on the side. Now, opening it up, you'll see right away that we have the "Hi, this is ASP, your new friend." So they're introducing us to the Arcade Stick Pro and naming it our friend pretty much right away before we even look at it. Now inside we have the arcade stick, and it is sandwiched between two closed cell foam blocks, which does hold it up really well from all of the edges. So the arcade stick does not touch any of the edges of the box, which will protect it pretty well in shipping. It's also inside of a styrofoam bag. Underneath of that, we have our instruction manual that describes the different functions of the joystick, and then we have a box that has a few things inside. It has a USB-C to Type-A cable, and then it also has stickers and pads for the bottom of the arcade stick. Now, it also has a Type-C to USB Type-A female adapter, just in case, you want to plug other things into it. I'm a little surprised that there's no HDMI cable inside of the box, and I'm also surprised that there's no type of power brick to plug into the wall. The instructions say you can plug it into the USB port on the TV, but I don't usually trust those. I'd prefer to just plug it into a 1 or 2 amp 5-volt power brick. Think of ones you would use for your cell phone. So if you have those laying around, it should work as long as it's a 5-volt, at least at the minimum a 1 amp adapter that you could plug the USB cable into. First impressions of the stick are very, very good. The front of it looks nice. It's very clean. It has the white finish on the front, and then it has, of course, all the different red, yellow, blue, green buttons. And then, of course, the joystick is also red, so it all really pops off of it very, very nicely. I really like the way it looks, and it's fairly heavy. On the side, we have our start, select, options, and turbo button, as well as the switch to turn it on, and then a switch below that to change between different joystick modes. I think it's strange they put the start button on the side, but I guess they don't want it to be easy to press it if you're going crazy trying to do combos on the front. On the front of it, facing away from you, we have HDMI out, we have a USB Type-A input, and then we have a USB-C for our power. On the side facing you, you have two different USB-C ports for inputs for the controllers, and then a 3.5mm headphone jack. Now, if you want to use this as a joystick and not a plug-and-play system, on the bottom there's a compartment that will open up, and it'll have a USB Type-A plug that is pretty much connected straight up. This doesn't unplug, and it has a pretty good amount of slack so that you could run it to a PC if you wanted to use it as just a standalone joystick. So as I've been using this for a bit now, trying out all the different games, I have to admit, this feels pretty good. It's actually fairly high quality. It feels like it's not going to shatter into pieces while I'm using it, you know, whether you're trying to do different things in the game, whether it's pulling off quarter circles, half circles, any of that. It doesn't feel like it's going to shatter in your hand. It has some pretty good heft to it. Like, this is heavy. It's not light. And of course, having the pads underneath that they sent will keep it from going anywhere. Now, this also acts like a standard joystick, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a plug and play unit if you don't want it to be. It has a cable on the bottom that kind of swings around. It is a USB Type A, and it does have a Type A to Type C converter as well if you want to do that. So if you want to plug it in, like I thought, into the Switch, that would have been a neat idea. However, after plugging it into the Switch, it does not work. It seems to only work on the PC, and it is strange that it doesn't seem to work for any of the platforms like the PlayStation 4, the Switch, or the Xbox One. Seems like a big miss to me, but we'll see if we get any kind of update from them, which appears to be why we have a USB Type A input on the front. Oh, and you may have just heard the joystick in that last clip. Yes, it does have a clicky joystick, something that a lot of people were not happy to see missing from the Mini. Well, let's actually turn the thing on now, and when you do, it kind of reminds me a bit of like the Switch's screen, which is funny, but it's fairly bare bones. There's no menu music, nothing like that, which I've started to realize that menu music is probably unnecessary, considering they would probably pick a very annoying one that I would just complain about anyway. But you can play around with the screen size, you can play around with the quality, which includes several different scaling options and scanline options, which is kind of a neat thing to add on there. Considering we've had some plug and play units that have barely any options, that's at least a bit better than what we've seen with the average ones. The headset volume is also tied into this, so there's no physical buttons on the outside of the system, which is a little annoying since you have to go into the menu to change the volume. Plenty of different languages there, as you can see going through it. They also have what appears to be the entire manual, just digitally, so if you lose it, you can still go through all of the different functions there. And then for some reason, they just included a button that takes you to the copyright. Yeah, there's a literal copyright button right on the menu. There are 20 built-in games, and as you'll see a bit of a trend, it's a lot of fighting games. It is, of course, King of Fighters, Samurai Showdown, and several other games that a lot of people probably won't recognize, but it'll be nice, I guess, for some people to try out some of the games that they may have missed. I really like Garo, Mark of the Wolves. I thought that was a great one, so we're going to fire that one up now.
They existed. Those blinded by ambition. Those consumed with vengeance.
Despite the Arcade Pro pushing out 720p and it, of course, scaling to your TV, the games still look pretty good. I mean, these are older games, of course, and they are aided by the fact that they are 2D and they still have a good art style that goes along and I think ages fairly well. And in motion, I think it still looks really, really good. And using the arcade stick itself that feels like pretty high quality, like I said, with the buttons, this all came together really, really nicely. I like the way it all played together. That said, I'm also not someone who is really, really in depth with analyzing things like frame rate or frame data or how, I guess, emulation, all of that would come together, or even the image quality itself completely. So what I'll do is I'll leave some gameplay from a bunch of different games with the sound so you can see how everything kind of comes together with the audio and the game in motion.
転生 ごめんなさい
2本目勝負
Now, at any time, you can back out to the main menu by hitting Options on the side, and that'll take you to a menu where you can play around with the volume, of course, for headphones. You can also do save and loads for different states that you kind of store, and you can remap your buttons. So let's say you want to change around where any of the buttons are, A, B, C, D, maybe you want them to go all the way along the top, you can do that, and then you just hit save settings, and it's good to go. All right, finally, let's go ahead and tear this thing down. Now, I did notice something on the bottom. There's a rubber stopper that, if you look through, appears to allow you to unscrew the top of that joystick. So that red ball on top, it appears you can actually unscrew it by using a flat head that would let you stop the screw that's through that rubber stopper. Kind of a nice touch there. Now, around the edges, there's a bunch of rubber stoppers that cover up Phillips head screws, and they're pretty serious Phillips head screws. I'll give them credit there. They're not like cheapo junk screws that might break or even strip. No, these are like heavy-duty screws. And after getting inside, well, that's why it's so heavy. I had talked about it having some heft to it, and it looks like they've done what I've seen other places like Analog, for example, do with their Super NT or their Mega SG, where they put a weight on the bottom to make sure it's not easy to tip over. And this, like I said, with the rubber stoppers that they give you kind of for the bottom to stick, like the pads, doesn't move very much, and this is actually a good move to have this weight. And you don't have to take my word for it. I'll actually show you how heavy this thing is. Okay, now that that's done, let's take a look at the other side. Everything here is modular, which is really nice. So you have ribbon cables running to your buttons on the side, which are like your start, select, and options. You have the front, which has your controller inputs along with your 3.5mm jack. And then at the top, you of course have your HDMI and power in. Everything just runs and connects, which is great. Now, the Neo Geo Mini came under some scrutiny for its poor performance in some games, and a lot of that had to do seemingly with the single-core processor. This one, however, has an upgraded processor. It is an ATM7051H, which is used in a lot of tablets that you might find on eBay or cheaper ones out of China. However, for this application, it's more than enough. It's a quad-core processor that's paired with 1 GB of storage and 256 megabytes of DDR3 memory. That is more than enough, I would say, to play a lot of these Neo Geo games. Certainly much better than the Neo Geo Mini, and I'm glad that they decided to upgrade the chip for this joystick. If we're going higher price and higher quality, you might as well upgrade the chips for really what's not going to be that much more. And for those of you who may want to change out your buttons, you can do that here. They did not solder these buttons down, which is a great thing. That means you can change them out for upgraded buttons if you would like, maybe quieter ones or just more responsive ones, maybe ones that you prefer. They just have 2 connectors, and they actually squeeze and pop right out the other side, which makes this much easier to upgrade. Again, only a couple of Phillips screws on the bottom to open it up, at which point you can start changing your buttons out for whatever you want. And that is the Neo Geo Arcade Stick Pro. It's pretty good. Like, quality-wise, it's up there. It definitely had some time spent making sure this would be a quality-feeling product. However, again, $130. It seems to be sold in Walmart and Amazon, so if you can order it either place. And I'm curious how many people will be walking through Walmart and see Neo Geo and want to pick it up at that price point, which leads me to be a little concerned about SNK's support of this device going forward, because I think it could use with some updates, whether it's to the OS itself and just when you're going through the menus, to the game selection, maybe adding a few. There's no like Metal Slug. I know it's a fight stick, they're looking for fighting games, but still, you know, they're like a Metal Slug in there, something just to change things up a bit. And then, of course, compatibility with current systems now. If this was a full fight stick that would work for all platforms as it is, that would be a pretty good value. But as it is now, it's very hard to actually recommend this to anyone who doesn't want a good fight stick for use on PC, or maybe they'd get a kick out of playing the 20 different games, because if you just take this with you and a couple controllers, you could probably have a good time at a friend's house or even a party with a bunch of people around. But let me know what you guys think about this down below. Make sure you like the video on the way out if you enjoyed it, dislike it if not, and I'll see you guys next time.